As youth pastors, it's inevitable. Sooner or later, we're going to get an angry text, phone call, email from a parent in our ministry. So today we're going to talk about how do we navigate that conversation and come out creating a raving fan.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Ministry Coach Podcast, where we give you weekly tips and tactics to help you fast-track the growth and health of your youth ministry. My name is Jeff Lascola. This is
Kristen Lascola.
And I am super tired because I just finished 100 holes of golf for the FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes golf tournament.
Good job,
today.
Jeff.
Yeah, I did it.
Good cause.
And that's also why I don't have any more facial hair.
Oh, I thought you were going to say...
it's coming back, but...
You guys... It was hard on me. I came home from youth group. I'm holding our dachshund like I do, singing and dancing
in the hallway
with the dachshund. And all of a sudden, this
stranger
skin person,
skin man
comes. And I was just shocked. It was so much.
I was shocked.
Okay, here's the thing. You're bald. So when you...
What? I am?
Do they know that?
Yeah, I was...
Okay.
The older episodes. There's no hair.
You always
here.
wear a hat. But I like bald. I think bald's cute.
She's
but
trying to make me feel better.
No, here I go. I like bald.
No, here I go.
Here's the thing. When you have no facial hair and you're bald...
You're a thumb. You're a thumb with eyebrows.
And there were parts of his face that I'm like, I've never seen these parts of your face
I don't think
before.
I've seen them. I think I was born with facial
You look like
hair.
a different person. I felt very uncomfortable around you.
It was awkward. So anyways.
But good for you.
I did it. All that to say, I did that to raise money for FCA. So I was able to hit 2 of the levels or tiers that I wanted, the challenges that I did. So thank you guys for making that possible.
Woo!
So next year, maybe we'll do something different. It was fun.
Yeah, awesome.
Shifting gears a little bit, tonight we're going to be talking about the moment when you're at youth group and that parent comes up and they're like red with anger because something
You just gave me the chills.
wrong.
The chills.
Something with their child and they need to immediately talk to you. Like who's the person in charge? Like that kind of moment. Right. Anybody but me. So
she went that way.
Right. So how do you deal with that experience? Because I'm sure everybody has experienced that. And if they haven't, they will sooner or later. How do you go in there like bomb squad and deactivate the bomb?
Ooh, it is tricky. And maybe you felt the same thing I did when Jeff said that, of just like, that like adrenaline sinking feeling of like impending doom. And sometimes for me, I have this like sick habit of always making sure I check my email the night of youth group just to see, did anything like not go off well? Did a kid go home and say something? I just check and see those parent emails. Not that I can really respond, but it's just like things happen that I don't see and can't control. And I'm like, some kid's going to go home and say something. So there's that like, oh crud moment opening your emails. But like you said, sometimes they just charge straight for you. Right. And you can just tell by their walk, they're walking with a purpose and they're excited to confront you. And that moment too is like, gulp,
Right.
Especially if you're not a confrontational person, which I've only met like 2 people in my life that say they enjoy conflict.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they just are like comfortable with it. I don't know. But I've only met 2 of those people that are like, oh yeah, that's fine. Like bring it on, So I kind of want to start and lay the foundation so that we see this episode through this lens. And my one of my direct reports, I guess you could say, one of our senior pastors, Chris Brown, he's over our student leadership team. And I quote him often. He knows that. So I always give him credit because I don't want people to mistakenly think I'm brilliant, because what a tragedy. So he says this: every conflict is an opportunity to create a raving fan. And he
actually, on your notes, it says that was quoted by Christ Brown.
Blasphemy.
He is really cool, but he's no Christ.
He actually uses that as a sermon illustration.
I'm Christ without the T.
Something like that.
No, that sounds way too.
I don't know. He uses that.
Yeah.
Something. I wasn't listening. I don't know.
Something about not paying attention.
I only listened to this quote. So every conflict is an opportunity to create a raving fan, and kind of to take that, like to unpack it for a second. It's like when you're in conflict, you start to have these conversations that you wouldn't have otherwise. So he says there's this opportunity to take someone from like, yeah, we liked your program, we liked your youth group, whatever. Now we're mad, but let's turn that around and like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad this happened because now we are raving fans. And what that comes down to, that pivot point, I guess you could say, is how did we, as the youth pastor in question, where were you on Tuesday night? How do we handle the conflict? And I think we're probably all across the board on this one of like your personality comes into play a ton. But you know, that moment like your heart sinks, or maybe you're the person who just gets right off the bat defensive and angry and like, I don't even care. Like they're so dumb, you know, or maybe you're an avoider and you're just like, I don't know, I'm going to hide, like tell them I'm busy, tell them I can't talk. Maybe you put it off for a long time. So we're going to walk through, you know, my own personal take on what's helped me with strategy or strategizing how to deal with parents. And let me say for the record, 17 years, I guess, on staff as a junior high pastor, I've only not been able to win over one parent during conflict. And I've had many a conflict. And guess what?
Wow, why do you have so many conflicts? I think that's a better question to ask right now.
Let's like investigate you.
Yeah, like why are you such a problem in your ministry?
I don't know. Help me. Write it in the comments. Tell me why I'm such a problem. But in all this time, yeah, one parent, no matter what I did, it just, and I never had that experience before. It was #humbling. But anyways, so let's start there. So what do we need to start? I would say before we even begin, check your heart. Okay. What do we need is a humble heart before we even start, because no matter what they say, no matter whose fault it was or wasn't, you're going to start to take some of this personally. Because if you're like me, your students, your ministry, your church, your leaders, they're your baby. So it's like,
it's very personal.
It's very personal.
Family.
And then they might start taking personal jabs at you, or who's in charge here and who's running this youth ministry. And this is just so unhealthy. You know, like there might come that like personal attack. So what we need to do before we even start the conversation with them is check our heart, pray for a spirit of humility so that we can see the lens or see the conflict through that lens, through a humble heart, not self-preservation, not like get your dukes up, and not avoidance. Like we said, wherever you line up on that.
And that might be a quick prayer because they may be marching right at you that you need to throw that out.
I have to go to the bathroom and pray.
I need to pray about this moment. Give me a second.
Yes. Well, my favorite prayer that I say often in my head is, Holy Spirit, help me. Holy Spirit, help me. Holy Spirit, help me. Jesus, help me. Jesus, Prince of Peace. I used to have anxiety attacks, and this doctor, she wasn't a Christian, but she was like, are you religious? And I was like, yeah. She's like, okay, then just say Jesus, Prince of Peace. When you feel anxious, Jesus, Prince of Peace. So I use that sometimes. And when it's like on in the heat of the moment, you're right. It's like, oh shoot, like here we go. Yeah. Like, but it's not the moment to put your gloves on. It's the moment to humble your heart, because we have to start with that like willingness to admit any fault on our part. We need to own whatever, because they're, for whatever reason, upset. And there's parents who are reasonable people, and conflict is, oh, and I know you didn't probably mean, and I'm so sorry, but I just wondered, and you know, this has been bothering me. And
you almost feel bad even bringing it up.
Yeah. And those parents, you're just like, okay, yeah, we can fix
we can
this.
Get through this.
And then you'll hit those parents that it's just like, whoa,
Right.
like you're a tea kettle, like a ready to explode.
Yeah.
And we're going to get everything in between. So we can't predict what's coming at us, but we can humble our own hearts for whatever is about to come our way. And it's scary. It can be a scary moment. So here's a few tips. Now, this one is if this is through like email communication, I set a rule. Oh, I didn't set it. Let's go back to Chris Brown. He set a rule for us. We have 24 hours to respond to a parent. So if you get an email, if you get a text, if you get a voicemail, whatever it might be, a parent wanting to talk to you, the clock is ticking and you have 24 hours to get back to them.
But that doesn't mean get back to them as in here's the solution or here's you can just get back and say, I would love to talk about this.
Yeah. Like an
let me-
acknowledgement.
right. So that it doesn't just sit.
Because now you're starting off on a respectful foot, a courteous foot. I didn't put you off, because the last thing you want to do is, if they're already angry and frustrated, for them to now feel
ignored.
marginalized. Yeah. And like ignored. And that's just going to add frustration. So now what you'll get when you actually do talk to them is the frustration for whatever the circumstance is that they're bringing to you, with a little cherry on top of, you disrespected me and didn't get back to me in time. So always a 24-hour at the maximum, get back to a parent. Okay. So that's kind of where we start. And then always in person. So what I like to do is, if I know a parent's really upset, normally I never reply over email. If they give me an email, I always pick up the phone.
And why is that?
That's not best case. Best case scenario would be you actually set up an appointment for them to come into the office. That may or may not be possible.
Like, do you do that? So they send an email and they're mad. Do you send an email back to say,
no,
I'd like to set up
I call them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's always call.
Yes. Because I've been around long enough to know you can get back and forth and back and forth and back and forth in this email, and there's no like human element.
Right.
And people, when they're forced to be human, are also forced a little more to be kind and civil and reasonable. But
anytime you take away there's like that level of in person and then phone call and then text, email, stuff like that. And whenever there's not a face to face or even voice to voice, it's like you're not speaking with another human. You're just someone who exists or may not exist that you're angry at. And
exactly.
It's strange.
It is
I'm sure there's psychological studies done on that. But.
Exactly. I think before that, it was the bubble of your car. When you're in your car, you're meaner to people that you would never do if you were in line behind them at the store.
Oh, like road rage.
Yeah.
I thought you meant if somebody was in the car with you, you're like, why are you so angry and mad at me and mean to me?
No, but it was that level of distance.
Totally.
That the car put in between us, is like you would gesture to people and yell and do that. It's like, well, if you were in line at the grocery store, you wouldn't be like, hey, blah, So when you feel like you're like hiding a little bit, you become that keyboard warrior a little more. So it's like, well, let's just take that element out of it.
And the fact that a lot of things can get
misinterpreted. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say, is just like, I don't want to leave anything up to question or chance. Tone, because I even read tone into it, because like, and then she's like, and
I'm like, what if she meant it?
And he does that. And I'm like, oh, this is my favorite emoji, by the way.
That is a good one.
I love that one.
Hand to the chin, looking off in the distance.
Yeah, it's perfect.
For those of you listening on the podcast.
Yes. So I usually pick the phone up right away. Like, hey, got your email. I'd love to talk to you about that. Are you available anytime this week to come in? And if we can't set that up, then we just talk about it right then and there. And that's definitely better than email.
Right.
So,
and side note, pro tip, if you don't like talking to people on the phone, there's actually an app where it goes directly to voicemail, which is
I've
brilliant.
Never used that.
I've used it on several occasions.
With who? Tell me. I won't tell.
It's somebody I don't want to talk to at that particular moment.
Was it me?
Maybe. No, you know. You never pick up your phone. It goes, I don't have to worry about using an app.
Because it's on Do Not Disturb.
Right. So I don't have to use an app. I know it's going to go to voicemail. We've talked about this in other episodes.
We have. I don't think you've forgiven me. You have 24 hours to talk to me about it. Okay. And so then now we're talking about it. And number one, you listen. You just let them get it all out. And you listen for understanding. Okay. You're going to want to.
This is in person.
Or on the phone,
okay.
But you're going to want to just, can I stop you? Can I stop you right there? And you're going to want to jump in. You may want to defend. You may feel your skin crawl because what they're saying is so off, but just listen like your life depends on it, because now you need to see yourself as an investigator. Okay. Dateline is my favorite show. And I'm fascinated with how they solve these crimes. So your job right now is just to listen for tone, listen for what they're not saying, because sometimes when you start to listen to these parents, you start to realize this is so not about what we're talking about. You're mad at our senior pastor for a sermon he did 3 years ago, and now you color everything through that.
Right.
Or, you're mad at the school district because
so many things come from the school.
The school, or you're mad at the California government. I don't know, but sometimes you start to listen, you're like, you just want to vent.
Yeah.
And this is not about this at all. So listen really carefully, and if you can make it not awkward, sometimes you can say, hey, I'm going to write some stuff down. It's while you're talking. It's just so that I can ask you some great questions later. So as the questions come to your mind, if you're really good at remembering them, then fine. But if you need to just jot down a few key words to help you come back, maybe to ask for clarification, or, because a lot of times, here's the tricky part. Working with students, parents get a very clouded version of things.
Oh, totally.
And what happened. And so, if they say, well, this kid stole my kid's skateboard and then broke it in half and then said, ha ha, you suck. I'm like, shoot, that's awful.
Right. If that's how it happened.
Exactly. And so I listen very carefully of, well, where were they when this happened? And who else saw it? And then what did your student do when it happened? Who did they tell? And, just asking these questions, nothing accusing, because that could very well happen. But I want to get as much information as possible. And then any other people that they mention, you want to then write those names down so that you can go and ask. This, it takes work.
Right.
This isn't solved usually in one day.
You're the investigator.
Yeah, it's not one afternoon. So there's probably, depending on what the situation is, maybe another parent you need to call, maybe another student you need to ask, maybe another leader who was in that group or saw it happen. But bottom line, you need to get the full story. If it just involves, the parent and no other parties, great. But if it's involving other students, other leaders, other staff, you need to do some more investigating. Or if you need to check security cameras, we've had to do that before, because I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if that happened or not. We have to check the security cameras to see, that kind of thing. So again, Dateline, if you're looking for another host, hit me up. I would be fantastic. So we're listening, we're validating feelings, we're empathetic, we're not argumentative, we're not defensive. And if you listen to our episode that we did with my sister, Elise Boggs, she talked a lot about this whole key to relational EQ being empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And so
EQ being emotional intelligence.
Yes. And that's what parents really want from us, is for us, and I'm not saying I'm sitting there with a clipboard, and tell me more, bruh. But what they also want is we listen empathetically. So it's we had an incident once at a Halloween event, and this kid had made his costume, and it was so good. And it was some video game character. I don't know enough about it to know what it was. You weren't there. Oh. And there was these boys who were making fun of him about his costume. And he was so embarrassed that he took it off and he hid it and just went without a costume. Well, those boys found it and ripped it up. And his mom called me just like brokenhearted. Like, my son was so excited to go to this party.
Yeah, and you'd be mad and sad to think
So
that
sad.
your son or daughter was just ridiculed, and then what, their property was damaged.
And it's like, how could I have prevented that? I don't know. I mean, I looked at the security cameras. I did see them. They grabbed his costume from underneath the elevator thing and they destroyed it. I couldn't tell who they were. And so it was so hard to hold them accountable. But I think, like, how does a youth pastor prevent that? I don't know. Kids are mean, and I can't our ratios are not 1-to-1. So we supervise, but when they go out in the hallway to go to the bathroom and they see a costume, they can take an opportunity to destroy it. It sucks. It really does. So when I came, it's not like, well, how am I supposed to watch like 150 kids? Like, well, I'm sorry, but you know, I just like, let me get on her level of like, that is so awful. And I'm so sorry he was upset. And I can't imagine, you know, what he felt. And if that had happened to my kid, I just would want to like fight those kids. And man, like, this did not go the way that I'd hoped. Do I have a solution for her? No, not really. I don't really know who these kids were. I can't really punish them. But what can I offer her is, I am so sorry this happened. Not like, I am sorry I allowed this ruckus to happen. And, you know, I can't believe my leadership sucks so bad. It was more just like, like, let me feel this pain with you. And I did. I mean, it still breaks my heart to this day, you know, because he was new. He didn't have a lot of friends. It's just like, oh, I can't sleep tonight. Like, my heart is broken for this kid. So, you know, like, sometimes all we really can offer is empathy. So that is just such a key piece. It's like, it always has to be there, but sometimes that's our only offering to them.
But that's huge.
Yeah. And I think that they want to be heard and know that we do care about every single kid. It's not like, hey, I got a program here to run, lady. I don't have time for your kid in his costume. I'm getting in line, you know? But that, it's like, well, what's the point? I don't know. That accent made sense to me. And if you have that accent, I'm sorry, I don't think that you're that way, you know, but
like, I feel like I understand you have that accent and I feel bad.
You're not good at empathy.
I'm not.
You're not.
I used to be in management at a Marriott property, and people would like come downstairs from their hotel room and be mad about something. And I'd hear like, let me speak to your manager, and be like, ugh. Because I had zero empathy, because most of the time the problems were dumb.
Yeah.
Like, we wanted a second floor room and you guys didn't have any. It's like, okay, well, it sounds like you solved your own problem there. We didn't have any. What do you want me to do? And then you'd just be so mad.
You say, we don't have any. What do you want me to do?
What do you want me to do? Now, I just couldn't get on their level, because I was like, that's so lame. All right, you're on the third floor. Who cares?
You know, you do bring up a good point in a way of like...
accidentally.
Believe it or not, you said something good. Kind of thinking it a little bit as customer service of like...
Which is horrible.
It is. And it's hard. And it takes a lot of patience, you know, and it sometimes the problems that people do bring to you, you're like, and?
How is that a problem?
Like, okay. Like, have you ever lived in the world?
Right.
Like, sorry.
Life sucks, and getting a third floor room is not the end of your life.
Yeah, but I think as pastors, you know, one thing, Carey Nieuwhof, his new book, which was great. He spoke at our conference last fall, and he was just talking about like, if you are a pastor who constantly feels cynical, like danger zone, like be really careful, because we work with enough people and get enough problems and have enough hard conversations that I think we can just do one eye roll for the year and be like, you know, but being so careful of the cynicism to know, like, no, these are real people with real feelings, with real lives, a real human beating, bleeding heart. And this is my job to empathize with them. And, you know, being a parent has really helped me with that, because one of my other points that I was going to talk about is, you know, I always think now to myself, if I wasn't here, you know, how would I want the pastor, the leaders, the people to treat my child if they came with a problem, even if it was dumb? Well,
It's funny you say that, because at the Marriott, they would also always teach every guest is somebody's grandpa or grandma or mom or dad or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, they're lame. Like,
I ate my grandma and it took forever because she was humongous.
I don't know what you want me to do. They've got a dumb problem, but
that's
in the idea of it. I understand, you know, and that you would want your son, daughter, grandma, whatever, brother treated with the utmost respect, with full empathy and all that.
Yes, for a lot of good spiritual reasons, but also, let's be real, parents talk to each other all the time. So if you can't find it in your heart to be empathetic just for empathy's sake, maybe you're teetering on cynicism, which we all have seasons of that, then could your motivation possibly be your reputation and the reputation of your ministry? Like, as unspiritual as that sounds, is like they're going to talk to their friends about this situation. Know that in the back of your mind, that the way you handle it, they're going to tell all their friends are in your ministry, the pickup line at school, parents talk. So many of my students that are at our youth program are because other parents brought them, you know, like, oh, this is our neighbor kid, or they're on our baseball team, you know, they have to believe in your program. Or it's like, oh no, don't go to that church. We tried it and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, if you can't muster the empathy, if you're just like, no, this is like ridiculous, then do it for your ministry, you know, to take care of that reputation.
And that word of mouth, good or bad, is probably the most pivotal and biggest point of it, where bad publicity, it spreads like wildfire, but so does good publicity. And it's like, if they're inviting their friends, it's like, you want that stuff. So people talk. They
do. And that brings me to my next point, but you don't talk.
Weirdo.
Whatever. Because it is so tempting to want to talk. This is like when a parent comes in and you're just like had it to hear, and you so badly want to vent to another leader or staff member. And there are times where I do bring them in and I let them know, because they can learn from, like, so when they actually go to do conflict resolution on their own, they've gotten to learn through my experience, and I walk them through, hey, this is what they said, then this is what I said, and this is the solution we came up with. And, you know, but sometimes I'm like, you know, they don't really need to know. So be really careful. If you've got a vent, you could try to vent to your spouse. Some pastors don't like to do that, because then they say, then my spouse hates everyone, hates the church, and hates my job. So I don't know what your relation or marriage dynamic is like, if you can constantly do that, or if it just is worse. But all this to say, be very careful who you tell, because if you slip up and think you get to confide in a parent that you're closer with or whatever, the other parent will find out. They will. And what's your defense there? There is none. Don't talk to anyone who is not on church staff. And you might even need to bring your senior pastor in to help, like, formulate a solution. You know, some of the solutions are cut and dry, super easy. You can figure it out. And some situations that people bring are just a little more complicated, and it might be better to bring your senior pastor, who probably has 4 conflicts a day he or she is dealing with, and can help, you know, guide you and navigate you through that. There's no shame. You know, I used to kind of think like, I want them to think I can handle this on my own, and like I know what to do in every situation, you know. But the truth is, many minds make, is there a saying there?
I don't know. Many minds make, come on, another M word. That'd be good. Alliteration.
Many more. I don't know. But you know what I mean. See, I told you I don't know everything, right? Full circle. Okay. So here, another tip too is, I think sometimes youth pastors have made the mistake of being a wedge in between a parent and a child. So say the conflict has something to do like a kid is really mad at their parent or something like that. So if you want to create an irate parent, then you will be that child's confidant and you'll come pick them up without communicating anything to the parent. Like, don't try to drive a wedge. Our goal, unless it's like a CPS abusive kind of extreme situation, of course, but
reconciliation.
Always. That's always the goal, is to reconcile kids back with their parents, not be the like cool youth pastor who they like confide in and the only person they can trust because their parents are so horrible. It's like, trust me, you're only getting half the story anyways. So don't.
At best.
Exactly. I mean, we know how that goes. So always, like, you know, when kids complain about their parents, the goal is always to reconcile kids back to their parents. There does come the situation where it hasn't happened often, but where there comes a parent who is super unstable and in a very unhealthy place and they want to duke it out. So
literally, like physically duke it out?
Nobody's actually want to fight me, but one night
that you know of,
after winter camp, we were at youth group, just running the night, totally normal night. This mom comes in, beet red.
Like a hornet.
You were there.
Oh, yeah.
It, like, the cartoon version would have had steam coming out of her ears. She just, like, marches right up to me. He's like, I need to talk to you. And I was really young at the time. And I was just like,
Jesus, Prince of Peace. Jesus, Prince of Peace.
Jesus, Prince of Peace. And so we go into the office. Youth group's going on. Like, I'm like, she starts talking to me out in the, like, big group space.
Talking, more like yelling,
screaming, whatever. And I said, hey, can we take this into the office? Because I was like, I don't want you to embarrass your son or
yourself,
whatever. And she just starts spinning the story of something that happened to her son. Turns out there was much more to the story. That's why I said you need to be an investigator. Spinning the story, she's just getting so worked up. She's getting in my face. And I said, enough. And she just like stared at me like, what do you mean? I said, I would love to talk to you about this. I said, but you cannot come in here on youth group night while I'm doing my job screaming at me. And I said, you could have called me and set up an appointment. You could have emailed me and I would have gotten back to you. This is the first I'm hearing of this. I have a lot of questions, but now I'm not doing my job because I'm in here with you. And I definitely deserved the respect for you to announce that you were coming and what it was about, because I now have missed my entire program. My leaders are filling in all my gaps because I'm in here with you. Like, that's not okay. And she just was like, oh, okay. Well,
we'll do it later then. Okay, great.
And it was just this awkward moment where I think she just could not believe I set a boundary. And I was so kind. You know, we don't fight fire with fire. I was calm, but I was firm of like, look, we can do this and you can get it all out, but not like this. Like, this is so inappropriate and it's embarrassing, you know? So those moments are so rare. I had another dad fly off the handle at me once when we were at like a arcade kind of place or something. And him and his daughter hadn't communicated, so he didn't know where to pick her up. And somehow that was my fault. And I didn't even know who he was. It was like so scary. This is when I was still an intern. I was like 20. I was like, oh, I don't know. You know, and here's the thing that I've learned too, is the more you work that muscle, I think of that time and I just stood there and I'm like, sorry, I don't know. And then, you know, the next time you learn a little more. So conflict is definitely an art. It's definitely something that you need to practice at, which is all the more reason why you can't avoid it. You have to someone once said, they painted this picture and they're like, when it comes to conflict, you go toward it. You go toward the conflict. Like, you just like
guns blazing.
You just pull up your bootstraps and you just go in and you're just like, I'm going to do hard things and I'm going to do this and it's going to be okay. Because at the end of the day, the goal is peace. The goal is reconciliation. The goal is to create a raving fan. And most of the time, these people just want your empathy. They want to be heard and they want an appropriate solution and to know that you're like not going to dismiss this case, but you're going to put the time, energy, heart, and emotion behind it as if it were your child, your niece, your nephew, your sister, your brother, whatever. Like the time and attention that you want someone to give to your family member. Well, like you said, this is someone's family member. So we need to get really good at working that empathy muscle and coming up with solutions for people. And if you're not sure what to do with the solution, is like, okay, this is a problem. I don't know what to do. I've hit those so many times. And I'll decide who the best person to help me navigate that is. Sometimes it's my senior pastor. Sometimes it's the high school pastor because they know this person. Or sometimes it's you, I'll like, what would you do? What do you think? You know the situation. And I bring in the best person to help me navigate it. But, it's going to take some time. Like most of the time, depending on what it's not just one little conversation and we get to move on. And so I always think of that verse, as long as it depends on you, live peaceably with everyone. And even that dad, I couldn't win over no matter what I did. I did all these steps. I came in with a humble heart. I came in wanting peace. I came in wanting to create a raving fan. I apologized. I listened intently. I validated his feelings. And the thing was just a hot button for him and he could not move past it. And we're going to have those. Like maybe you've experienced that, just like I couldn't get through to this person and you just sort of leave with like a little bit of a broken heart. Like, shoot, like that's a bummer. Like I really wanted peace and I still do. I wish that situation could have turned out differently because I really loved those kids. Like they were awesome. But I know that I did everything I could. And so I'm like, he might be mad at me, but God's not. Like if I had lied to him, I never did that. Or if I hadn't apologized, or if I had talked behind his back to other parents, then I would be like, oh, yeah, there's reason why.
I own part of this.
Yeah, but that's why we never want to be in that position. If it still doesn't work, at least you can stand on this of like, I heard you. I fought for you. I fought for this. I fought for your kid. I did everything I could. I treated them as if they were my own. I apologized. I sought peace and reconciliation. I sought the Lord on a solution and if you did all that and it still doesn't work, well, just remember, Judas still betrayed Jesus. So it's just like, well, I mean, even he had one in the bunch that was like, he like lived with the guy and did life with him. And it's still like, well, people are going to be people and we can't own all of that. But sometimes you look back on situations and you're like, man, I should have done that differently.
And you learn from it and you grow from it and you move on.
Yeah. And it's hard. And so hopefully this is helpful. And hopefully these are few and far between.
That's what I was going to say is hopefully this is something that doesn't happen often, but just wanted to give you a little bit to help you in those situations. And it's probably something as weird as it might be, but like kind of not to practice it, but to have it in the back of your mind. What would I do if, just so that when it does happen, which is probably going to be out of the blue, you're going to be, okay, I can handle this because I've kind of worked through it in my own head.
Yeah.
With some of these things that you laid out, which is, great to be. I think there's some people who have it just innately in them to be able to deal with those situations. I am not one of those people. I believe you are, which is a gift, that you have that I clearly don't. But like you said, I think it's learnable and it's teachable. And
you know what's interesting? I know we're wrapping it up, but as you were talking, so we have a security team and the head of the security team is an ex-police officer. And you know what he always tells me? He always says, when some shady character roams onto the campus, we're not looking for someone on our team to be like, hey, punk, get out of here. Like, this is a church. He goes, 99% of those weird problems can be solved if the right security member goes up to that
and de-escalates
and just talks to them. He's like, if they have the right skills to just talk to this person who's kind of hopped up or weird or angry at something or is kind of being a little threatening or strange, because we have a big church, so we get kind of like kooks coming here and there. And he's like,
in the form of parents.
And he goes, we don't want anyone to use force with those people until absolutely necessary. He goes, if you're good at your job, you just talk to them. He goes, that's why, I don't want some like hothead who's like trigger happy or something like that. He's like, it's just like, can you just talk these people and just hear them and like have the right emotional intelligence to, like you said, de-escalate. And I think that like in a sense translates to what we're talking about is like sharpening that skill of like, hey, like, man,
what's going on in your life?
Let's sit down. Like what's going on? And then
you didn't get a second floor room. Let's talk about it.
But sometimes
There's gotta
you'll
be something
just realize,
else in there.
And then these parents start like crying and their kids being bullied at school and their family has just had it and they're in so much pain.
And that's the thing is like, some people have road rage and it's just flat out road rage. But I think a lot of people have road rage because of 10 things that happened to them that week or that day.
Totally. And what can we do as pastors? Just sit there and listen. And I hear you. I see you. I taught on that passage today that when Jesus raised that widow's son from the dead. And the best part of it was when it says, it's in the book of Luke. I think it's Luke 6. No, Luke 7:11, because I remember it was 7:11. And it says Jesus saw her and his heart overflowed with compassion. And I think sometimes people it's like want to be seen, and parents are tired. Parents are stressed. Parents love their kids ferociously. And I think sometimes it's like, they just want like, do you see me? Like, I'm trying my best. Like, I need some help. I need someone to care. I need someone to listen, and it's so interesting. I've sat down with parents and students in a counseling office about something going on. And it's just like, just let them talk, offer compassion. And then if there's a solution to happen, like fight for them for that. I don't know. I think we need to be pastors to parents as well.
You're not their enemy. You're on the same team.
We are. We're on the team of their kid, and parents need our love too.
Totally. Well, we hope that helps you out. And we hope that it doesn't happen often, but when it does, that you'll be prepared. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. And we will see you next time.